Hello, my name is Rain and welcome to my channel where I discuss fantasy Formula 1. We've done it. That's it. The 2024 season has ended. The F1 season and the F1 fantasy season has ended. So let's look at Abu Dhabi and look how I finished the season, as well as looking back and see how I performed overall. Wow, what a year it's been. Let's get right into it. Before we talk about the year overall, let's just quickly mention Abu Dhabi. Somehow, it ended up being a positive one for me. I'm not going to show you my rank just yet, but if you've looked at the title, you could figure out why I have a smile on my face right now. 2 DNFs. My entire spiel about Bottas getting driver of the day was for nothing. Franco Colapinto DNFing again. But the fact that I had the positive premium duo of Lando plus Leclerc ended up doing it for me, right? My transfers that I did was Piastri out for Leclerc and then Tsunoda out for Hulkenberg, and both of those transfers was a net positive of points. I also had Charles Leclerc as a 2x option up until like 3 minutes before the deadline when I switched to Norris, and obviously that ended up being incorrect after Leclerc's amazing recovery drive. But I still don't think that was an incorrect decision, and I'll quickly explain why. Most people that I saw were moving towards a triple McLaren lineup. Yes, some people were going for Charles, but a lot of people were going for triple McLaren because of how fast McLaren looked in practice. And, I mean, McLaren were fast, right? They were 1-2 in quali as well. But for that reason, a lot of people, and I think majority of people within the top 10K, had Norris as their 2x. Very, very few people deviated from that. And the people who did deviate from it, they were playing the differential game. They were trying to do something different, trying to gain rank for the final race of the season against other players. For me, where I was at before Abu Dhabi, I was at 10,300, something like that. You can go back to the previous video and have a look for yourself. But it was about 10,300, and I knew that yes, I could go for Leclerc, and I had a big section in my deadline stream about Leclerc. Like I made a full thing, and I mean I predicted 53 points with driver of the day, and I gotta say I was pretty close. That was a pretty good guess. Although here I did think he was, you know, with my 53 pointer, I thought he was going to have a better qualifying than he did. So I was fully on the Leclerc hype train, but I knew that if Leclerc messed up or did not have a good race at all, that I would have no chance of getting top 10K because of how highly owned Norris was. It was essentially a guarantee, right? Sure, Leclerc had a higher ceiling, but if that ceiling was reached, which it was, like Leclerc definitely reached the ceiling in terms of his potential points. Yes, I maybe would have been, you know, top 7K maybe. I would have climbed a bit extra. I would have gotten a solid bump in points, right? I don't know how many positions it would have been. Maybe it wouldn't have been 2,000 positions or you know, 1,000 positions. Maybe it only would have been 500 positions. But for me personally, at least, I don't care if I'm top 6K or top 9K, right? Having a rank of 9,900 for me would have been the same as having 6,900. It would have been one thing if I thought I had a chance of getting into the top 5K, because that's the next milestone. But for me, you know, chasing the stars for Leclerc didn't make sense, because if Leclerc failed to produce points or even worse had a DNF and I put the 2x on him, due to the sheer amount of people putting the 2x on Lando, I knew I would have been screwed. And Lando still performed fantastically. I mean, he got pole, he won the race. It was clean from him. He didn't get fastest lap of driver of the day, so he was on the lower end of the point scoring system, but he could have definitely had a weekend like Zandvoort if Leclerc had not had his recovery drive. Because realistically, apart from like Leclerc and Hamilton, there weren't any really, anything noteworthy else in the race. Valtteri Bottas DNF'd, obviously. K-Mag did not have a good race at all. That was partly Bottas's fault, but these drivers that were quitting, or not quitting, but these drivers that were out of the sport did not have a good enough showing to warrant driver of the day. It was only really Leclerc and Hamilton in the running for it. But if Leclerc had DNF'd and Hamilton had not had the recovery drive, I do think Lando was next in line. And if Lando was looking at a 55-pointer again and I did not have the 2x on him, I definitely would have missed out on the top 10k. So I'm not too fussed about not getting the Leclerc 2x, even though I switched it with 3 minutes to go. I still think it was the correct decision based on what my goals were for this final race. And just having Leclerc ended up being a big enough differential. Also, the fact that Colapinto and Bottas are very highly owned asset. I think if Leclerc or Hulkenberg had DNF, that would have hurt me way more than it did. Way more than the Colapinto and the Bottas DNFs did, because as it stood, most people were on Colapinto, Bottas, and even a lot of people who were on show did transfer show out to Bottas in the sort of event that Bottas would have a good race and get driver of the day. I mean, Bottas could have had a good race, right? He started P9, I think is the highest he's qualified all season, and then the race was just tragic with 2 major incidents, and then the second one leading to him not finishing the race and not ending up doing donuts at the end. So that was a sad one for Bottas. But I mean, overall, the team was pretty optimal, realistically, to what I could have done. There was no way I was ever transferring Colapinto out. Bottas could have been transferred out if I had gone a different route with my other transfers, but I really wanted Nico, and I mean, Nico ended up working out well. So overall, a good weekend. And I mean, you can't see below me. Usually I have my rank below me because I did want to go and show you. So I've switched over to the homepage of the F1 Fantasy website, and I think you should take a look at this. I do think some of these graphics are quite cool. Some of them are a bit wrong. I wish I could select Team 1 and Team 2 across all the stats and not just this sort of overall performance chart that we have here, because as you can see, I didn't create Team 2 until a bit into the season to use as sort of an experimental team. I mostly just like running one team, really, and I do think the Team 2, Team 3 system is kind of off. I mean, just make a new account, I guess, although that's not allowed in some fantasy games. But I wish I could have just seen stats from my Team 1, but alas, there's some Team 2 stuff in here. So I'm just going to focus on my Team 1. I don't really care about my Team 2. But nonetheless, it is a cool little graphic showing the end of the season. And the first one, top 1%. I mean, you only need to be in the top 25k for that. But you can see that I did manage to get into the top 10k just barely. My final rank of the season, 9,170. I did it. Fantastic. Let me know down below in the comments what your final rank was. I've seen some fantastic results over on Twitter and in my Discord channel from people who follow me and been in the community. So congratulations to all of you. I'm super jealous of your ranks, but I have to be happy, right, considering where I was after summer, after Sandwars specifically. I had multiple red arrows in a row, and I was well out of the top 10k and managed to claw my way back into it just barely, right? So I have to be content. This was my goal at the start of the season, top 10k, and I managed it. It's my first time in the top 10k in F1 Fantasy. I know, content creator, you're supposed to be a pro or whatever, but last year I was in a running for a really good rank. I was like top 2 or top 3k. I think I was like 2,500 or something. And then I had a disastrous quota. I had my 2 or my 3. I had my 3x on Hamilton, and I had Mercedes, and I had Leclerc for their disqualifications in quota last year when Hamilton ended up having a fantastic race, right? And then everything got ruined. And I tumbled out of the top 10k and didn't manage to get myself back in. I think my final rank was like 14k or something like that. I don't actually remember exactly because I was so tilted off the quota. So I have to be happy. This is sort of my redemption. I made it into the top 10k. I wish I could have been there sooner. I did, briefly have a stint in the top 10k, sort of around midsummer, roughly. I would have to go back and actually look, but then after a horrid summer run, I was a bit outside of it. I was like in the top 15k or something like that, and I managed to claw my way back in just barely, despite 2 DNFs to end the season. So I can't say anything other than that I am content with this. Let's just scroll down and look at some of the other stats. My best performing driver, Lando Norris, not surprising at all considering how many times I owned him, though I did not have him for his mega haul in Zandvoort. Best performing constructor was Ferrari. I had Ferrari for most of the season. I only sold them briefly for Mercedes during the summer. I don't even remember exactly for what races, but I had Ferrari for most of the year. And this is what I mean, where like my team 2 is in this sort of summary. I wish I could have seen my most ranks jump in a single race for my main team. Most points in a single race was the 358 that I got in Miami when I using the Limitless. The Limitless, again, super powerful chip, but I definitely used it in the wrong week. Then massive congratulations to the top 3. Fantastic job getting this high on the global leaderboard ranking. These point scores are absolutely ridiculous. This one I thought was interesting, and I think this in particular shows how we have been playing the game incorrectly this year. The Dream Team of 2024 are the top 5 highest point scoring drivers plus the top 2 highest point scoring constructors, calculated across 100 million budget with their initial pricing at the start of the season. And the team is Leclerc, Piastri, Shogun Yu, Kevin Magnussen, Nico Hulkenberg, McLaren, and Ferrari. Now, I did some quick maths just using the average score of these drivers over on F1 Fantasy Tools and just multiplying that by 24 because I couldn't be asked to go through every single race and adding that together. That would have taken too long. And the total score of this team, if you had bought this at the start of the season and just kept it, not made a single change, not played a single chip, would have been about 4,567. Now, this could differ a bit due to how averages and numbers round up and down over the course of that, but about 4,567 points over the course of the season for this team, no chips. And if we quickly go back to just go to the leagues, just go to the global leaderboard and just click this here, you can see that my total score for my team 1 was 5,258, meaning I only beat the Dream Team that used no chips, mind you, never had Norris 2x across the entire season. I only beat them by like 680 points, and that is a sham. And you're wondering, how did those points come there? You know, the Dream Team doesn't have Norris, and they didn't use the Limitless, they didn't use the 3x. Well, I mean, look at the C tiers they can afford. This budget now is higher than what my budget is at. And this should really be, I mean, I know is the best possible team, right? But the fact that even picking this team at the start, setting and forgetting it would have been more budget. And yes, it would have been slightly less points, sure. But maneuvering through some of the DNFs that these drivers have had, and also using chips, I mean, this team would have outperformed mine for sure if I started with this. And I think just the fact that this team has a higher budget than mine really shows how we've been playing the game wrong. And the people who are at the top of the leaderboard have been playing the game right because they're sitting here with 3 premium drivers at the end of the season. Because I could not afford Kevin Magnussen and Shogun Yu, I had to have Bottas and Colapinto, right? And that's a big difference in points, especially when both of them DNF at the end of the season. Now I know that, this team doesn't have Norris, and Norris Leclerc or Norris Piastri slightly higher budget than Leclerc Piastri, but still, this is still a higher budget than I'm at now, and I think everyone who's below what this team is now in budget have made budget building mistakes this season, it has to be said. Because realistically, if you make optimal budget building plays, then you should be able to outperform this. Kevin Magnussen has been a set and forget fantastic budget building option throughout the entire season. Yes, but we should be able to look at a race and say, I think this driver is going to be good at building budget and pick it. Kevin Magnussen was that one. Now, we didn't know how the budget building system worked until Japan, I believe. So if I had known how, what the budget building formulas were, or how the game calculates price increases at the start of the season, I would have approached the season differently. I would have not started with Max Verstappen, for example, and I think that was one of my main shortcomings. I started with Max Verstappen and I did get a lot of points, started the game off well, but I did not gain any budget at all over the first couple of races, and that really set me back early. I had to play a really heavy budget building focused game around the second quarter of the season, which put me back a lot in points, and then I was quite unlucky with DNFs at that point as well. To add on to that, I'm not saying I was the unluckiest in terms of DNFs. I know a certain someone that you might be watching as well who's been way more who's had way more bad luck with DNFs than I have, but it's still been pretty brutal for me. So that's the dream team. Most used chip across the season was the 3X. I think this just shows the actual number of active accounts, right? Because the fact that not all 2.5 million accounts even use the 3X chip is a bit damning for the game. I don't know why they even show this stat. I think it's slightly embarrassing, I'm going to be honest. I think the actual number of invested strategists, at least at the end of the season, is probably close to 50 or 100k, right? Because this is the most used chip, and remember, a lot of casuals pop their 3X at the start of the season just because, right? So realistically, I would like to know what the least used chip is, and I think that number is closer to the actual number of engaged strategists within the game. Hopefully, this number is bigger next year. And then we just have some biggest jump in position, from other people, but this is likely people who've joined late as well. So I don't really care. This one's pretty cool. 496 points. Must have been a crazy limitless team, or something else. It was in Brazil, so I'm assuming they had both Alpines. Then we had some fantasy stats. Value for money was Leclerc. Most overtakes, Kevin Magnussen. Not surprised by that. Most points in a single race was Max Verstappen, 77. And then we have most positions gained was Lewis Hamilton, actually. That really shows how his qualifying performances have lacked this season. And that's the end of the F1 fantasy summary on the website. So let's quickly talk about what's next. I mean, what's next for this channel and what's next for F1 fantasy. Overall, for me, I have to say thank you. I mean, from me to you, thank you so much for being here for this season. Please, if we can get some likes on this video, final, real video, I guess, of the year. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I mean, 70% of people who watch these videos aren't subscribed. That's crazy. Please subscribe. I think I just hit my mic with my nose, but I'm not going to cut. Deal with it. Next up for this channel, very exciting thing coming in the next week or so, and that is the result of the FanAmp F1 Fantasy Community Survey. These results will be posted, and I will definitely make a video reading through them, reading through some responses, reacting to the results, what people think about the game, and what should be changed. So look forward to that as soon as the survey has concluded. You can unfortunately no longer fill the survey out, so if you did not do that in time, that is unfortunate. Maybe there will be another one next year where you can rant about your grievances with the game. But that is, those results are coming in the next couple of days or next week or so. So look forward to that. I will also be doing some other stuff in the off season. Some videos that will be out, the survey video, of course, but also I'll be taking a more deep look back throughout the season strategy wise and actually break down what worked, what didn't. And that will be a sort of longer, rambly type video. It will be probably, over an hour podcast style. So if you just want to listen to me yap for a while, look forward to that video. It's, right now I've just broadly looked over the main survey or the main survey, the main data on the F1 Fantasy homepage, right? But I will actually be doing a deeper dive in my season and other people's season as well, and look at what worked and what didn't. Not like, oh, this asset was bad. It was bad owning Albon these weeks where he DNF'd like 6 out of 5 times or whatever it was. Not that way, but more in a way of what could have happened, what should have happened, what strategies did we use that worked well, what strategies did we use that didn't work well. And also I will be using that time to sort of do a look back on some of my content, I guess, throughout the year and see how well it did. Looking at some all of the rain tip, the tip of the week, MS Paint's tips, see how many worked, how many failed, and see if there's actually if I'm actually good at my F1 Fantasy tip of the week, my rain fantasy tip of the weeks, or if it's all bogus. I know for a fact that the one I had this week did not really come to fruition. But that's okay. Not all of them can do. So I will be doing a look back both on my channel and as well on my team and see what worked and what didn't. So if you're interested to listen to that, definitely subscribe. That should be out in the coming week or so. And then after that, well, I will definitely be having a break over the holiday. I think you should too. Spend some time with family. So there will be nothing happening over the Christmas and New Year's break here on the channel, so no content expected there. And then it's a new year, new season of F1, and I'm so excited for it. The racing, but also F1 Fantasy 25 and the channel. The channel's definitely continuing. I said at the start of the season that I would try and upload something for every race, and I did that. And over the course of the season, we've introduced more things. I've done 1 or 2 videos for every race weekend this year, and since I started the deadline stream back in Imola, I believe was the first one. Since that deadline stream in Imola, I've only missed 1 deadline stream, and that was in Hungary when I was away. Other than that, I've had a deadline stream every weekend, every qualifying, every deadline. And that is something that will likely continue. I really, really enjoy the deadline streams, so I will be spending the off-season tinkering with the format, seeing what worked, what didn't. And if you have any suggestions or notes or things that you liked about the deadline stream or didn't like, let me know. Do you like the tier list we did? Do you like the team submissions? Was it better when I just took team submissions in the chat? I think the answer to that is no. Did you like the Discord team submissions channel? Do you actually watch it even if you don't submit a team? So I would love to know your thoughts on the content as a whole, the streams, the systems. I will be definitely taking the break up until the season start to think about what I can improve with the content, with the channel. And I already have some ideas based on some experiments I've ran behind the scenes over the course of the fall, and I know what works and what doesn't. So if you haven't seen any real change in the content, that's why. But there will be more change coming next year. I'm looking to revitalize the entire channel, but still keeping the core of it being me ranting about a game and a sport I really, really enjoy. And then lastly, or not really lastly, but of course, leading up to the new season, there will be way more content than there was this year, right? Because I started this channel with this is just my team selection for the start of the season. I made no videos leading up to the game releasing at all. That will obviously change. I will have guides and news videos ready over January and February, depending on what and when things drop. So that will definitely be happening on the channel as well. And then, lastly, and probably the most exciting thing, is that I'm going to Australia. I'm going to be in Melbourne for the season opener of the 2025 F1 and F1 Fantasy season. I will be there. I will be watching it live, and I'm so excited. It's only the second time ever I'm watching a Formula One race in person, and I can't believe it's going to be at a season opener in Australia. It's the first time ever I'm visiting the country. So if you're in Australia or if you will be in Melbourne, let me know. Definitely, contact me on Twitter. We could meet up, stuff like that. It's going to be awesome. I cannot wait for it. And we'll be looking to make some content there for sure. So yeah, that's about it for this video. Thank you so much for being here with me throughout the season. I will go offline a bit, work on some content for the channel, and then take a nice holiday break. And I'll see you, well, whenever the next one is. Goodbye for now. God, I did it. Top 10K. Let's go.